The unbelievable rise of Wrexham is something I've wanted to talk about for a little while. I think that this is one of the most deceptive stories in world football. Wrexham have very quickly become everyone's second team and one of the most talked about teams in world football. Today, I want to go into a little bit of history on Wrexham, where they came from, the takeover that has taken place with the celebrities that I'm sure you know about, and also how they've managed to go from the National League to League One. Let's be honest, the only time that most people have really heard about Wrexham in the last 15 years up to the takeover is Bootlegger.
My spidey senses tell me this is gonna get fucking tasty, baby!
Just getting pissed at stadiums and having a laugh. No one had really heard of him for a little while. Wrexham spent a season in 04-05 in League One. In that year, they won the Football League trophy, a pretty big achievement for them, but they were also relegated to League Two. They remained in League Two until 07-08. They were then relegated, finishing bottom of the league with 40 points from a possible 138. Then followed a very, very tough time for Wrexham, a 14-season spell in the National League. So this paints a picture as to where they actually were as a club. During this 14-season spell, they got in the playoffs 5 times, but never actually managed to gain promotion back to the Football League. During the previous EFL stint, their average attendance was around 4,500. When they dropped to the National League, an average attendance of over 4,000 was only seen 4 times in 11 seasons. And then came the takeover. Since the takeover, the average attendances season on season have been 8,500, then 9.9 thousand, then 11.2 thousand. And this also included the highest ever attendance for 44 years. But why did this happen? What did the takeover really bring? What changed on the pitch? So, new owners come into football clubs all the time. It's a pretty regular occurrence, but generally when a new owner comes into a lower league club, it doesn't have such a drastic impact. And the first thing that changed at Wrexham was marketing, effectively, or the visibility of the club around the world. Wrexham were included in FIFA 22 in the rest of the world team section. This is the first ever non-league team to be included in a FIFA game. FX and Disney started making a show called Welcome to Wrexham. That was announced, and obviously that will have led to a slight increase in attendance and interest in the club because people will have wanted to be a part of the journey. The celebrity owners themselves of Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney, they bring in a lot of eyes and are obviously what led to these things happening, and it also led to them doing a US tour, which was very successful. This worldwide coverage has then led to Wrexham getting some of the biggest companies in the world interested in and going on to sponsor their club. These include TikTok, United Airlines, Expedia, Vistaprint, and HP. Some absolute juggernauts of companies coming in to sponsor a National League / League Two team. Absolutely mental. The previous sponsor from 2011 to 2016 was the local Wrexham University. The amount of cash injected by these huge sponsors will have had such a big impact on their overall numbers and what they were allowed to do. They also ended up with training shirt sponsors, shirt sleeve sponsors, which is so rare in the lower leagues. This in itself isn't a problem for me. I suppose celebrity owners come in and you expect things like this to happen. It's the way in which they've gone about their transfer business and just completely bought their way to the Football League. If you are glazing the way that Wrexham have done things just because you enjoyed the TV series, if you were one of the clubs fighting for promotion in the National League or League Two, and you hear about what I'm about to go into, I think that you'd be so upset that there's no rules against this in a way. And there's a lot of celebrities now that are becoming investors in clubs and starting to become more interested in trying to pretty much recreate what Wrexham did. So the first major change that happened, they brought in Phil Parkinson as their manager. So Phil Parkinson has been a successful Football League manager for a number of seasons. His previous 3 jobs were at Bradford City, Bolton Wanderers and Sunderland. He was very successful at Bradford and Bolton. He earned both promotions and playoff places during his stint there. And I'm sure you'll remember, he took Bradford City to the League Cup final, beating Arsenal and Aston Villa along the way, which is just absolutely crazy. So for a manager of that level to come in to a National League club, having managed in the EFL and been really successful. I'm sure a lot of Football League teams will have been interested in him. What do you think made him do that? Why would someone like that do that? So obviously they've now got one of the best managers in the National League, one of the best managers in the EFL, many would have probably said at the time. What happened with the players after a 14-year stint in the National League? I can't imagine the squad was particularly able to mount a promotion charge straight away. Well, since the new ownership has come in, that doesn't matter because they've signed 41 new players. A few of them were just before the new ownership. I mean, in the transfer window, they joined. From that window and on, they've signed 41 players. A lot of these players are full internationals who have played at the top level of football. I want to go into just a few of these, in my opinion, the standout ones. The first one, James McLean. James McLean has had 103 caps for Ireland. He's played 158 times in the Premier League, 5 times in the Europa League. He's played in European top-level football, 221 championship appearances, and in the 22-23 season, the year before he signed for Wrexham, he was playing in the Championship. He played practically every game in the Championship and then decided to drop to League Two. Getting on a little bit, but you would have probably just dropped to League One or tried to find another Championship club. So why do you think he did that? Why would it make sense for someone to drop from the Championship all the way down to League Two? It's one reason. Stephen Fletcher, another one. 33 caps for Scotland, 189 Premier League appearances, 2 Europa League appearances. So that's 2 players that have had footballing experience in the second biggest European competition in the world. 12 League One appearances as well, so not just Premier League, another top division, followed by 196 Championship appearances and 182 Scottish Premier League appearances. So it makes a little bit more sense with Fletcher because he really is getting old. He's getting towards the end of his career. But in the previous season for Dundee in the Scottish Premier League, he had 10 goals and 6 assists. So he clearly wasn't quite at the end of his tether. And for Wrexham to pick him up in League Two is mental. Again, he scored 8 goals for them in 33 appearances. He didn't play a huge part in the season. But having the experience of McLean and Fletcher, although they're a little bit older, being able to get those players in League Two is mad. And I think they would have usually gone to League One or potentially the Championship. You can read into that what you will, but I think the next transfers are what says it all. Ollie Palmer, he broke the Wrexham FC transfer record, £300,000, right? And this was when they were in the National League. So £300,000 is a massive, massive figure. He dropped from League One with Wimbledon to the National League. The season before, he scored 31 goals and then dropped to the National League. Why do you think he did that? Why do you think he did that? Absolutely mad. Another player to go over is the one that's probably the most talked about, and that is Paul Mullin. Paul Mullin had the season of his life in League Two, scoring 32 goals for Cambridge and helping them get promoted to League One. What must have been one of the best seasons of his entire career. Most players in that situation would be buzzing. He's in his mid-20s, he's hitting his prime, he's just had the best season of his life, 32 goals, gets up to League One and then decides to join Wrexham in the National League. Why do you think he did that? Why do you think he'd join Wrexham? You know, you can see a running theme here. In his first season in Wrexham, he scored 26 goals. Then in his second season in Wrexham, still in the National League, he scored 38 goals. And then after getting promoted to League Two, he scored 24 and assisted 8 last year. So a fantastic signing for them. But of course it was a fantastic signing for them because they signed a goal scorer who'd scored 32 in League Two to earn promotion to League One back down to the National League. If you don't see that there's some sort of an issue here going on in the fact that they can attract this level of player, other National League teams literally wouldn't have the slightest chance to do so. And the last player I want to jump into is Ben Foster. Really smart marketing move to get Ben Foster because obviously he's a massive football YouTuber. And I actually really like Ben. I think he makes fantastic content and he's a pretty entertaining guy. But when signing for Wrexham, this is a player who has had 390 Premier League appearances and 3 Champions League appearances. And it's not like he was quite at the end of his career. I know he ended up walking away from Wrexham in League Two because he felt like he couldn't do it anymore, and that's fair enough. I actually respect the fact that he just hung the gloves up. But the season before he signed for National League Wrexham, just keep that one in mind, he played 26 games for Watford in the Premier League. So a player who had just played 26 times in the Premier League decided all of a sudden to go and sign for National League Wrexham. Why do you think he did that? A couple of other ones to mention. They got Arthur Okonkwo from Arsenal on loan, a goalkeeper who has a market value of 2 million, dropping down to League Two. It's not that unrealistic, but it's clearly a reason why Arsenal picked Wrexham to send him instead of a League One or even Championship club. And then Elliot Lee, who dropped from playing 34 games in League One and previous Championship experience with Luton, back down to League Two and managed to get 16 goals and 5 assists last season. So I've just named that. These are all players that realistically wouldn't usually join Wrexham if it wasn't for, a little injection of cash into the veins. And that's James McLean, Stephen Fletcher, Ollie Palmer, Paul Mullin, Ben Foster, Arthur Okonkwo, and Elliot Lee. All of these wouldn't be there if it wasn't for the new owners, the new eyes on the club, and the new money available to them. And you can think, oh, well, maybe they just wanted to be a part of this journey. Maybe they wanted to be a part of the wholesome journey that Wrexham are going on. And that's fine until you look at their wage bill. In the last season in the National League, Wrexham recorded the biggest loss in a single season of any National League team in history. Tell me that I ain't buying the league. If that is literal, complete evidence of them buying the league. They reportedly had a wage bill of £6.9 million in the National League. That is literally unseen. It's never been seen before. Buying the league. And then they go up to League Two. In their first season in League Two, they have the highest wage bill in the division already. So it's not like they slowly built up to this. Maybe I could get it. They didn't get promotion in the first season under the new ownership in the National League, and then they get promoted, and then they build a little bit in League Two. No. That's not what happened. They literally just bought their way to League One. And fair enough, it does make a really, really cool Disney documentary. But I don't think that that's what football's about. Their wage bill in League Two was £1 million higher than the second highest in Gillingham. Gillingham are an established football league club, and it is mad that Wrexham can just come up and blitz them like that in the first season there. Again, I'd understand it if it was after a couple seasons, but yeah, let me know, does this change your opinion on the story? Or are you just completely engulfed in Ryan Reynolds and Disney TV? Because to me, as a football fan, if I'm watching this, it's just the same as, for example, when my team, Leeds, comes down to the Championship now and just has the budget to blow everyone out the water for a couple of years because of parachute payments. I don't particularly think that's on either. And I don't think that that's what should be allowed to happen. I know that there's no FFP in the National League. Otherwise, there may have been some kind of blowback on Wrexham for this. But now that they're up into the football leagues, their revenue due to the added investment of these sponsorships and the Disney documentaries, added shirt sales, world exposure, will mean that they're fine. They're within FFP rules because they kind of front-loaded it already. They got the best striker from League Two when they're in the National League, and it didn't matter so much. It got them to where they are now, and they don't need to think about it so much anymore. I personally think it's a bit of a disgrace, and everyone's just completely into it. International players, astronomical wages, marketing most football teams in those divisions simply can't compete with. Plans to expand to a 55,000-seater stadium in a Wrexham county that only has 131,000 residents. You can see where it's going. Other teams are going to try copy it, and I think it's a pretty sad state of affairs that there was no rules in place to stop them just absolutely blitzing it in the National League. But at least it made for a good Disney documentary. Thank you very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. Come back for more football deep dives, more football content. We're posting a video every single day this month up towards the end of the season. There's going to be plenty of Euros content, and I really appreciate your time. Have a good night. Peace.